Hello, Jacksonites. Surprise! Happy Jurassic June on May 31st. Hopefully, unlike back in 2022, I can actually get through the whole franchise this time and with no technical errors and tons of stuttering mistakes. Me, along with Pierce from Cinematic Trash, make your presence known.
Hello, everybody. Hold on to
Might
your
make it a little
butts.
closer.
Hold on to your butts.
Oh, yes, indeed. Today, me and Pierce will be discussing one of our all time favorite films, assuming one of the favorite movies for Pierce.
Yep.
Um, and definitely one of, if not the best film from one of the greatest directors in the last 50 to 60 years. 1993's Jurassic Park, directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, you might be asking, why am I reviewing Jurassic Park for the third time in 5 years? Well, because my 2022 version of this review was botched. Nothing against Texas Guy Movie Reviews. He did a good job for his debut review, but that was a very rough debut in terms of technical difficulties. All the echoing and stuttering on his end kind of really sours that video. So, especially I wanted to complete the Jurassic Park re-reviews last year for Jurassic Park's 30th anniversary, but that occasion just kind of came and went in the snap of a finger without me even realizing it until after it was over. So that was a big missed opportunity. And especially now, since I've been in a really big dinosaur mood as of late, I figure, you know what? Fuck it. There is a new Jurassic Park movie coming out on Netflix that I will never watch because it's attached to Camp Cretaceous. Um, but the proper Jurassic Park franchise concluded back in 2022, at least for the time being. Um, and yeah, like I said, I've been in a really big dinosaur movie mood. And when it comes to dinosaurs, Jurassic Park is one of the biggest examples that I think of in a snap of fingers. So, what the hell? Why not? Let's talk Jurassic Park. This is a fantastic film. So, yes, indeed. So, you want to go into your personal history first, Pierce?
Sure. Let's see. I watched it for the first time when I was really young. My parents rented it from Blockbuster. So Blockbuster was still around when we watched
Oh,
it.
the days.
Yeah, so I must have been like five, 5 or 6 when it came out when I watched it. And I really loved it. And as a kid, you think that it's hard to watch a movie like that, especially a very advanced movie, because there's a lot going on in Jurassic Park that like would fly over a kid's head. And like even the first act of the movie, because the first act, it's all about building suspense. And to a kid, you would think, oh, well, a kid would be bored because the dinosaurs don't show up for like a while. But even just as a movie in general, I was still entertained, and it kept like 6-year-old me like glued to the screen, even when there were no dinosaurs on screen. It was just people talking, and doing stuff. So yeah, I've watched it not literally, but I've watched it so many times since then, and I think every time I watch it, I still enjoy it just as much.
All right, so when I was a kid, I was absolutely obsessed with dinosaurs. I would always check out dinosaur books at my school's library and at my also local public library, like stacks of them, thick stacks of dinosaur books. And I would just read and read and read and just pour myself into researching not just dinosaurs, but prehistoric life in general because not only did I was I obsessed with books, I was obsessed with dinosaur documentaries like Walking with Dinosaurs, Dinosaur Planet, Walking with Beasts, Before the Dinosaurs. What are some others? When Dinosaurs Roamed America, even the shitty Valley of the T Rex. I was anything and everything dinosaurs when I was a kid. And as I've stated, when it comes to dinosaur media, Jurassic Park is one of the top three examples that I think of whenever I think of dinosaurs. The other being Walking with Dinosaurs and Dinosaur Planet. Um, but the number one is Jurassic Park because I saw this movie at an extremely young age. As I've stated before, Jurassic Park is one of those movies that it's that collection that I would cycle through when I was young. Star Wars, Terminator 2, True Lies, The Mask, Jurassic Park. I would watch this movie on repeat so many times when I was a kid. I never got sick of it, never got bored of it. I would just live and breathe anything Jurassic Park. And it was because of Jurassic Park that I became so obsessed with dinosaurs. And it was because of Jurassic Park that I discovered other dinosaur documentaries, specifically Walking with Dinosaurs. And over the years, my love and appreciation of Jurassic Park has just grown. I, of course, would check out the rest of the franchise. I would do a little bit of research on its source material, and I would just have discussions with people and like discussing dinosaurs, discussing Jurassic Park and other dinosaur films. But it would always seem Jurassic Park would be the one that reigns supreme. Like this is the top of the elite when it comes to dinosaur movies. So Jurassic Park is a very, very special film for myself, and I definitely consider it to be easily in my top 10 or 15 favorite movies of all time. Probably at least in the top 10. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what my list was when I did my top 100 favorite movies, but I know it's in there. Um, I would definitely also say it's kind of tough, but I would probably say that this is Steven Spielberg's best movie, or at least it's my favorite of Steven Spielberg's movies. I haven't seen as many as I initially thought, but I have seen a lot of his big hitters. And of all the films that Spielberg has done, this is definitely my favorite. How does this rank amongst his movies for you?
It's definitely up there. Trying to think, he's made a lot of movies, so
I know a lot of
I'd
people
say
would say it's either like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or Jaws.
I honestly I think Jaws is is I think Jaws is better than Jurassic Park, and maybe Schindler's List might be even better too. I'm trying to think. He's just made so many movies. It's hard to really, and a lot of them are just so good. It's hard
Yeah,
to, yeah,
Spielberg too. He has an extremely varied filmography from what I've seen. Like he can go from making Schindler's List, and then he can make E.T., and then Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then Jurassic Park.
yeah. Well, actually, he made Schindler's List and Jurassic Park simultaneously. They both came out the same year.
Oh, really? Oh, damn, that
Yeah,
was a big.
1993. That was the big year. That was his duality of man moment.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
okay. Well, good for him. Um, yeah, it seems like every genre in cinema history, Spielberg has dipped his toes in at some point throughout his career. And well, I'm pretty sure his filmography has slowed down quite a bit in recent years. He still does show no signs to me of really slowing down and wanting to completely stop making movies. Admittedly, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite, but I do think it is pretty underrated in his filmography is the 2016 BFG film. I'm actually a pretty big fan of that movie. I think it's hilarious. And it's a pretty worthy adaptation of the book by Roald Dahl. It I think it's pretty solid. So to since
mm,
this is my
mm,
third time reviewing Jurassic Park, I will spare you guys with some of the details regarding the plot, but before we jump into the plot, well, first off, a word from our sponsor.
Yeah, off-brand cherry cola. What happened to your Diet Coke?
I drink whatever I can get my hands on.
Fair.
And it's not the brand itself, it's the sound that's the sponsor.
Oh. Okay.
Alrighty, so Jurassic Park, of course, is a 1993 American science fiction action film, which, by the way, or no, I'll talk about that a little later. Directed by Steven Spielberg, produced by Kathleen Kennedy. I kind of keep forgetting she was involved with this movie. And Gerald R. Molen, and having an ensemble cast featuring Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Richard Attenborough. Funny how David Attenborough would have his own taste of dinosaur media with the recent Prehistoric Planet series, which I have seen, which is pretty damn good. It is the first installment, of course, in the Jurassic Park franchise, and is based on the novel from 1990 of the same name, written by the legendary Michael Crichton, with a screenplay that was co-written by Michael Crichton and also co-written by David Coep. Didn't he also do Pitch Black Guy? Or wait, no, I think that was David Toohey. Never mind.
Black guy.
The film is set on the fictional island of Isla Nublar off Central America's Pacific coast near Costa Rica.
Nice.
Excuse me. Where a wealthy businessman, John Hammond, played by Richard Attenborough, and a team of genetic scientists have created a wildlife park of de-extinct dinosaurs. When industrial sabotage leads to the shutdown of the park's facilities, a small group of visitors, including Hammond's grandchildren, struggle to survive and escape the now perilous island filled with dinosaurs. Before Crichton's novel was published, 4 studios put in bids for its film rights. I wonder what the other 3 were. With the backing of Universal Pictures, Spielberg acquired the rights for $1.5 million before its publication in 1990. Crichton was hired for an additional $500,000. Damn, wouldn't that be nice? To adapt the novel for the screen. Coep wrote the final draft, but he left out much of the novel's exposition and violence while making numerous changes to the characters. Filming took place in California and Hawaii, specifically the island of Kauai, the same place from King Kong 76. From August to November of 1992, and post-production lasted until May of 1993, supervised by Spielberg in Poland as he filmed Schindler's List. Okay, yeah, he was right. Jurassic Park premiered June 11th in the across the United States and was a blockbuster hit, going on to gross over $914 million worldwide in its original theatrical run, and it has exceeded over $1 billion upon subsequent re-releases since then. The biggest one that I know of, I believe it was either during 2013 or 2018 when it was re-released to celebrate either the 20th or the 25th anniversary. It was re-released and it made a fair bit of money there.
Wasn't one of the re-releases in 3D?
Well. Yeah, actually, I remember that too. Yeah.
That was probably one of them too.
It surpassed Spielberg's own E.T. the Extraterrestrial to become the highest grossing film of all time until the release of Titanic in 1997. It also remains the highest grossing film directed by Spielberg to date, which is surprising. The film was a critical success, with praise directed at special effects, sound design, action sequences, John Williams' music, and Spielberg's direction. The film won over 20 awards, including 3 Academy Awards for technical achievements in visual effects and sound design. Following its 20th anniversary re release in 2013, Jurassic Park became the oldest film in history to surpass $1 billion in ticket sales and the 17th film overall. Jurassic Park's pioneering use of CG is considered to have paved the way for the special effects practices of modern cinema. In 2018, it was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culture, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And of course, the film spawned a multimedia franchise that includes, isn't it 5 sequels? 5 sequels, as well as a TV show, various video games, various theme park attractions, as Pierce is painfully aware of, comic books, and various other merchandise. So, yeah, this movie definitely has a pretty strong legacy in and of itself. Um, Anything to add before we jump into the abbreviation of the plot?
Um, I think that pretty much covers it. This movie is a pretty important and very popular movie, and
As
it's
we'll discuss later.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of briefly breeze through the plot, partially to spare Pierce, but also to spare the viewers, as I have reviewed this movie multiple times recently. Industrialist John Hammond has created Jurassic Park, a theme park of cloned dinosaurs on the tropical island Isla Nublar off the coast of Costa Rica. But he is being sued by the family of one of the dinosaur handlers that was killed and being approached by lawyer Donald Gennaro to demand a safety certification. Gennaro invites Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum, and then John Hammond himself brings on paleontologist Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill, and paleobotanist Ellie Sattler, played by Laura Dern. And upon arriving to Jurassic Park, they are shocked to see a live Brachiosaurus in the flesh, as well as other dinosaurs. And at the park's visitor center, the group learns that the dinosaurs were created by extracting dinosaur DNA from prehistoric mosquitoes and further enhanced through genetic engineering, completing them with DNA from frogs, among other animals, to fill in gaps in the dinosaur's genetic code. Hammond's grandchildren, Lex and Tim, join the others for a tour of the park while Hammond oversees them from the control room. Many dinosaurs fail to appear, but the group does eventually encounter a fully grown, sick Triceratops. But the tour is cut short when a massive tropical storm approaches. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they actually make a good chunk of this movie during a real hurricane?
Uh, they might have.
Oh, okay.
Uh, let's see, Hawaii. Uh, yeah, they might have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park's disgruntled lead computer programmer, ow, ooh, that hurt. Dennis Nedry has been bribed by Lewis Dodgson, a man who works for one of Hammond's corporate rivals, to steal frozen dinosaur embryos. Doing this, he deactivates the park's security system to access the embryo storage and hides them inside a disguised can of shaving cream. But also doing this, he cuts power to the tour vehicles, stranding them near the Tyrannosaurus Rex paddock. As the dinosaurs are contained by electric fences, with them being down, the T Rex is allowed to escape, and the T Rex proceeds to attack the group. It injures Malcolm, kills Gennaro, and Grant and Lex and Tim escape over a cliff out of the paddock. On his way to deliver the embryos, Dennis Nedry is attacked by a venom-spitting Dilophosaurus and thus killed in the process. Sattler helps the game warden Robert Muldoon search for survivors, and they find Malcolm before they are once again chased away by the T-Rex. Let's see. Unable to decipher Nedry's code to reactivate the security system, Hammond and Chief Engineer Ray Arnold, played by fucking Sam Jackson, whom I always forget is in this movie, even though he gives one of the movie's most iconic lines. Hold on to your butts. The fuck? God, Sam Jackson's been everywhere. Good
Yeah.
on him.
Mhm.
Yeah, Ray Arnold decides to reboot the park's entire system. The group shuts down the park's power grid and retreat to an emergency bunker, while Arnold heads to a maintenance shed to complete the rebooting process. However, after failing to return, Sattler and Muldoon head over, discovering the shutdown released the velociraptors. Muldoon distracts two of them while Sattler turns the power back on, not before being attacked by a third and discovering Arnold's severed arm. And then in the process, too, Muldoon is caught off guard and killed. Grant, Tim, and Lex reach the visitor center, and Grant, heads out to look for Sattler, leaving Tim and Lex behind. The Raptors appear and pursue Tim and Lex throughout the kitchen in one of the most iconic scenes of the whole movie, but they escape and lock one of the Raptors in a freezer. The group reaches the control room, and Lex restores the park's systems, allowing them to contact Hammond, who then calls for a rescue. When they try to leave, they are cornered by two remaining raptors, but the T-Rex appears and kills them. And Hammond arrives in a Jeep with Malcolm, and they board a helicopter to leave the island, thus ending the film. How is that? I tried to keep it interesting for you.
It's fine. I was checking your work. I could see which parts you were skipping. That's a good
Well,
start.
what do you think of this plot?
Well, story wise, it's a well written movie. I mean, that's a good plot. I see. I've yet to read the book, although I do have the book, so I will read
Yeah,
it
me too.
one
I've
day.
never read the original novel, though I do know it's kind of funny how similar Jaws and Jurassic Park are to each other, both like structurally as movies, but also like the superficial similarities. Like they're both based on books and they're
Mhm.
both very different from their source material, yet both cases, it's debated on whether or not the movie is better than the source material. I've heard many
Yeah,
cases for both movies on people who either prefer the book or the film. It usually is pretty neck and neck.
yeah. I've told Nick this already, but I've read the Jaws book, so I have been able to compare it to the movie, and it's pretty. They're both very different, and it's like it is a very close tie. I wouldn't say it's a tie. Like I think the movie edges the book out a little bit because the movie's more fun. But whenever I read Jurassic Park, I'll let you know what I think.
Okay.
I do know the ending is different from what I have heard. The ending to the book is different uh, from the movie, which is a similar case in Jaws.
Anything else?
That's it.
Alrighty. I love this movie's plot. I wouldn't. I don't know if I would say like to quote James Rolfe that this is like a prehistoric Frankenstein. I don't know where he gets that, but um, this does touch upon a area of science fiction that I should have mentioned in my Star Wars video with Jackie Boy. This movie very much so is very deep rooted in science fiction, and an aspect that I totally forgot about. It does feel in some ways like a 50s sci-fi B movie. like it's some kind of big science experiment that's gone horribly wrong. That's a huge part of science fiction. That was everywhere throughout the late 40s, throughout the 50s, and even a little bit of the early 60s. There's tons of 50s B movies about science experiments gone wrong. I'm sure Pierce could name some, like The Fly, um, The Incredible Shrinking Man, I guess
Invisible Man.
Frankenstein, huh?
The Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man. There's another one. What else? Man-made monster. Um, yeah, there's tons of tarantula. There's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of 50s science fiction B movies about.
Reanimator.
Yeah, I guess you could say Reanimator. Oh Jesus, Reanimator. Yeah, there's tons of B movies where science experiments go wrong, and there's either somebody's mutated into a monster or somebody is creating or trying to create some kind of monster or being, and it goes wrong, and the monster goes on a rampage killing people. This movie does have that in its bare basics. But similar to Jaws, where Steven Spielberg took a very basic concept, a monster that's going on a rampage and people have to band together to kill it, he elevates that movie to new levels by just making a very damn good example of that genre. Jurassic Park is very similar. This movie is, at its bare core, a movie about a science experiment gone wrong, monsters going on the loose, and people have to survive. But like Jaws, Spielberg makes such a good example of that genre. You don't even notice that this movie does have some cliches from its B movie 50s roots, just like Jaws. But yeah, it's just so well made and so entertaining and so well written, you don't even notice. Just like with Jaws, you're just along for the ride. So
Yep.
since Pierce neglected to write down any of his damn pros, he's just gonna have to piggyback off of me. But that's okay, because I have 12 pros for Jurassic Park. Pro number one is the cast, because of course. I'm only going to specifically talk about four characters. I don't, a couple of them I don't have that much to say about, but there is kind of a central four group of characters. Excuse me. First off, we have Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill. I haven't seen that many films with Sam Neill. I've seen Bicentennial Man, which he's great in. Of course, Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World Dominion. What else was he in? Fuck.
Come on,
I'm
Nick.
trying to think. I've never seen it, but I'd like to. I know he was Merlin in, I don't know if it was a TV movie or some kind of 90s.
It's a trilogy. It's a trilogy of movies.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
know that. See,
I
good
think
thing I
it's
have another movie buff here.
yeah. Sam Neill. He was in Memoirs of the Invisible Man. So it's like a '90s Brian De Palma movie. He plays the guy that's chasing after the Invisible Man.
In the Mouth of Madness
Yep.
and
Oh, he's in the third Omen movie. He's what's
Event Horizon.
yeah, Event Horizon. I'm trying to think of what the third Omen movie is called, like the final something or like
I've heard that one's pretty ass, but whenever I hear Sam Neill, this is the movie that always comes to mind. Though The Bicentennial Man's also a very close second. That's a painfully underrated movie. But yeah, Sam Neill is fantastic. Alan Grant is obviously a very respected, very knowledgeable, very like well-trained, well-studied paleontologist. He exudes this air about himself where he's very no nonsense. He's very well researched. He's very knowledgeable on paleontology. Um, like you believe every word that comes out of his mouth about various dinosaurs on how they behaved or how they hunted, so on and so forth. It's very believable.
Oh,
Um,
he's also in The Hunt for Red October. I totally forgot.
oh, I've never seen those movies. Um, and Sam Neill's or Alan Grant is also pretty relatable because one of the big um, character arcs about him in this movie is his disdain for children, and it is it's relatable to some people how Sam Neill acts towards kid or not Sam Neill, excuse me. Alan Grant acts towards Tim and Lex in this movie. He right off the bat, he just comes off as being just very dismissive and just not a fan of children. And it's kind of amusing to see him be put in a situation where he has to interact with two kids when he's made it very clear he's not really a fan of kids. But as the movie goes on, he discovers his more paternal side, which is very sweet to see him look after and care for these two kids that are just thrust into his care in a very drastic and life-threatening situation. But as the film goes on, it's very sweet to see him evolve and change and soften up towards children. And his chemistry with the rest of the cast, like with um, Ellie Sattler and John Hammond and Jeff Goldblum. His chemistry with everybody else is very, very strong. Um, so yeah, Sam Neill does a fantastic job as Alan Grant, and to me, this is his best performance. He's really good in Jurassic Park 3 as well, but this is where it's at for me.
That's fair. I like Sam Neill. He's really a character actor, really, because he's not like a huge name.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree. I
Yeah,
would probably say this is his most high profile movie in his entire career.
yeah. Because I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, he appeared in the TV show Peaky Blinders. I know he had a big part in that show.
Apparently, he was really villainous in that show, from what I've heard.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good show though. Killian Murphy, who just won best actor uh, a couple months ago. He's the main character in that show. So yeah, yeah. Sam Neill, he plays a really dirty, nasty guy in that show. I'm trying to think. Yeah, he's from New Zealand. Or
Oh,
no,
is that what he is? I thought he was
yeah,
Scottish.
no. So I think he was born in Ireland, but he
Oh,
lives in New Zealand. So like Ireland, New Zealand, they have like I don't know. They have differences in their accent, but like they're very specific accents. You know what I mean?
hmm
But they
yeah.
also
I
do
heard
speak
him
English.
talk during some of the featurettes for Jurassic Park 3, and I was totally thrown off. He speaks in his normal accent during that, and I was like, "Wait, what? That's what he sounds
Yeah.
like?"
Yeah, I think it's like an Irish because if he's from Ireland then moved to New Zealand, it's like a mixture of a mix Irish New Zealand accent. Because if you look at his filmography, he's in a lot of like New Zealand movies, right?
Probably the Merlin movies too.
In
I
fact,
wouldn't be
I
surprised.
think I even have he's in a movie called Sleeping Dogs, which I believe I have a copy of if I can find it.
Alrighty, so moving on to the second character I want to talk about is oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
Sam Neill, Sleeping Dogs. Yeah, this is a New Zealand movie. So
Is Laura Dern as Ellie Sattler. I know even less about Laura Dern's filmography than I do Sam Neill, as the only other movie outside Jurassic Park that I know that she did was Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi.
oh my gosh, you got to give Laura Dern a lot more credit than that, man.
Now, I'm sure she is a good actress. I mean, based off this movie, I would certainly hope so. But she is very good in this movie too. She serves as a really good, both not really a foil, but she's like the yin to Dr. Grant's yang. She's the one that kind of mellows out Dr. Grant and is like a good supplement to his knowledge, where he's obviously very knowledgeable in paleontology. She's very knowledgeable in both paleontology, but specifically paleobotany, the study of prehistoric plants. And she too comes off as being very knowledged and very skilled in her career. And she's also, whereas Dr. Grant's very kind of cold and analytical, Ellie is a little more emotional, but she still incorporates her knowledge and logic into her more emotive side. Um, she's not quite as blunt or savage with John Hammond during the lunch talk, but she does, in her own way, kind of drive the point to John Hammond that he's making a lot of mistakes and he's doing a lot of things that aren't really the wisest choice in the world to make. But her chemistry as well with Dr. Grant, it is pretty strong. I will kind of agree with Jackie Boy that it's one big problem I have with Jurassic Park 3 in hindsight. Um, I didn't even understand when I was a kid that those two were supposed to be a thing, but I don't know how I didn't notice that. But even though it's kind of subtle and brief, their romantic chemistry is pretty strong. You can tell the two care a lot about each other and have strong feelings for each other. It's subtle, but it's still pretty strong. Um, but yeah, her chemistry with the rest of the other characters, John Hammond's really good, Ian Malcolm's really good. Um, yeah, not much to say, but she is pretty good. Number 3, we have John Hammond, played by Richard Attenborough. This is a big difference that I know of between the book and movie. In the book, John Hammond is way more unlikable from what I've heard. He's way more of a rich, snobby, unlikable piece of shit. Whereas here, I wouldn't say that I would say he's likable. He's very warm. He does come off as still being very intelligent, and you can tell that his heart and his mind are in the right place. But the biggest thing about John Hammond that came off to me this most recent viewing, he's got extreme naivete. Like he's unlocked essentially Pandora's box with this genetic engineering technology. And yeah, to quote Ian Malcolm, he wields it like a kid who found his dad's gun. He's just like throwing everything and like every idea that he could possibly come up with at the wall to see what's sticks with no restraint, no caution, no second thought. He's just doing whatever he wants to willy-nilly. Um and he doesn't come off like he's doing it to be malicious or greedy. He comes off as being very proud of this big discovery that he's come across, and he wants to share it with as many people as possible, not because he's greedy, but just because he too is in awe of his discovery and he just wants to share it. And he's just so naive and so short-sighted and so blindsided by this big discovery that he gets caught off guard when it just totally blows up in his face. But unlike the book version, from what I remember, Hammond in this film takes it in stride. He comes off like he's disappointed, but he's also remorseful, like especially in the second movie. I don't want to talk that much about the sequels, even though it's hard not to. But I do know in the second movie he is way more like remorseful and way more pretty much just saying, yeah, I messed up. I totally messed up. And you still do see that with John Hammond in this movie. And Richard Attenborough does give a really, really solid performance. Again, haven't seen that many. I haven't seen any other movies with Richard Attenborough. I'm actually a little more familiar with his brother because I've seen many BBC documentaries like Blue Planet 2, Prehistoric Earth, Life. But yeah, Richard gives a very strong performance and a very believable performance too. Anything to add about both Dr. Sattler and Richard Hammond?
Uh,
Richard Hammond. Richard Attenborough.
yeah. Like I said, with I think I mean, even with the rest of the cast that you talk about, it's like I feel like you don't give these people enough credit. It seems like Jurassic Park is like all a lot of people, like not just you, a lot of people really only know these actors from that one movie. And I guess it makes sense because they a lot of them really are character actors, except for maybe Richard Attenborough.
And Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum too. Well, Jeff Goldblum, I think he always was a character actor. I think in
Yeah,
recent
but
years,
I
it's because
know.
he's become a meme now. So people in hindsight, like nowadays, they think of him as more of like a meme, more so than like a true actor. Because even in recent years, I can't think of any movies that Jeff Goldblum has headlined where he had top billing. You know,
Well, sure. Not to. I'll save my thoughts on Jeff
yeah,
Goldblum in a little bit, but I see what you mean.
yeah, but yeah, Laura Dern. If you take some time to look through or watch some of her movies, like she's a big. I don't know if she's a regular, but she's in a lot of David Lynch movies. So she's in Blue Velvet. She's in Inland Empire. She's in Wild at Heart. She did the movie Smooth Talk, which is one of her best performances. That was like a teen '80s romantic psychological romantic drama. And plus, she was in Marriage Story. I don't know if you remember back in 2019, Marriage Story
Really,
won.
I well, I haven't
Yeah,
seen
she
that, but I
was. I
didn't know
think she
that.
was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in that movie at the Oscars. She plays the therapist, the marriage counseling
Oh,
therapist.
I would have
Yeah,
guessed she's Scarlett Johansson's mom.
no, she's not her mom. She's like the person, like she's the She's her Scarlett Johansson therapist or lawyer, something like that. I don't know. I have to. It's been. I haven't watched the movie since it came out, but that is a good movie. I have it. The Criterion put it on Blu-ray, so it's a really solid movie and a really solid performance out of Laura Dern. Richard Attenborough, he's the Great Escape guy. I don't know.
Oh, I
Yeah,
have seen Great Escape.
yeah,
Okay, so
Great
that's
Escape.
the only
Yeah,
other
so,
movie I know of.
yeah. He's
He's the
not.
guy with the messed up eye, right?
Uh,
I think so.
no, I think Donald Pleasance, because Donald Pleasance is the one where Don Pleasance, and he was in Halloween. But yeah,
Well, I know
see that?
Donald Pleasance. He
Yeah,
like all, out of nowhere he loses his sight halfway through the movie. But I think Richard Attenborough's character, he has like a scarred eye or something. He's got some
uh,
kind of disfigurement on his face, and he's
he
clean
might
shaven
have.
too.
Yeah, he is clean shaven. Richard Attenborough, he plays Santa Claus, a Miracle on 34th Street,
Which one?
the '90s one.
Okay, I
The
only
one
saw
the one
parts of
that came out like literally the same, like the year after Jurassic Park came out. So he's got the beard and he looks exactly like how he did in Jurassic Park, except he wears a Santa suit.
it.
You know. But yeah, Richard Attenborough. It's a excellent cast. It's probably one of the best cast movies ever made. And yeah,
The last main character that I'll talk about, of course, is Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum. Now, yeah, Jeff Goldblum has become a big meme nowadays, but he's funny, so I think it's cool. Um, and I do think that he is way better in the second film, without a doubt. But Ian still does give a strong, quirky performance in this one too. And I actually probably would say he's the one that I'm the most familiar with because he was also in he was in The Fly, but he was also in what was that alien movie?
oh, Independence Day.
No, not Independence Day, though he did do that too. No, it was another movie he did with Gina Davis where he's like a Martian or something. It's kind of like a rom com or like an '80s rom com. I think it was released in '85 or maybe '84. But I remember thinking that looked kind of funny. I saw snippets of it on TV one time.
Oh, into the night, or like
I don't remember. I think Gina Davis was in it too. But yeah, Jeff Goldblum is still really good. His performance is very strong. His dialogue's well written. His chemistry with everybody's really good. And for the first half of the movie, he probably is the most entertaining character to watch, not just because he's funny and he's Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum, but he's the one who really just kind of rips into John Hammond's ass the most in the first half of this movie. He's the one pointing out all the flaws and he's asking all the hard questions like, what the hell are you doing with this technology? Why are you bringing back dinosaurs? Um, why are you exploiting this technology and these dead creatures just for your own gain? Just to, you know,
it was this
patent it,
movie.
package it, and slap your merchandising rights on it, and then now you're selling it. Now you're selling it. Oh, Earth Girls Are Easy. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of this. I looked over at myself and I'm like, oh wait, it's that movie.
Um, Now he's not necessarily being really mean or nasty about it, but if you really listen to his dialogue, he's being pretty savage, especially with his line of saying, "What you call discovery, I call rape in the natural world." He's being really savage and just ripping into John Hammond's ass for the first half of this movie, and it's quite engaging. And I've said this before, and many people have asked this question regarding Jurassic Park. If we did have the ability to actually resurrect dinosaurs and bring them back to modern days, should we do it? And my answer is a very hard hell no, for many, many reasons. Not that I think if we were to bring back a T Rex or a Triceratops or a Mosasaurus, that Jurassic Park, the movie, would just happen in real life. I don't necessarily think that, but I mean, there's a good chance that it probably would. But, oh. Okay.
What happened?
We don't really have the ability to sustain a fully grown T Rex in today's society. It would just be a complete waste of, first off, hundreds of millions of dollars, but it would be a complete waste of time, resources, and money. It would just not be a feasible thing to do. This is why I also don't think that we should resurrect a mammoth. There have been talks of maybe bringing back mammoths in today's day and age, but I think that would not be a very good idea. What do you think?
Well, scientifically, larger dinosaurs wouldn't be able to survive anyway because millions of years ago the Earth had more oxygen in the air, so the dinosaurs would require a lot of oxygen because they were so big. But our atmosphere now just wouldn't be able to provide them the oxygen they would need to survive anyway. Now, I mean, I don't disagree. Like, I don't disagree that we shouldn't bring back animals that were extinct back back to life. You know, like, and they've done that before. They've successfully like been able to bring back a couple species of some types of animals. But it's like through like I don't know how natural it is, but like they breed them back to life basically. You know what I mean? Like they naturally were bred out of existence, and now the scientists would breed them back into existence.
Yeah,
Um, but there are certain things that just really are unethical, like certain species of where it's like you have two totally different types of animals and you breed them together. In theory, they could produce like a whole new species, but like it's like I don't know how ethical it is. Like I don't know if you remember the human Z. um debacle in China. There's like back in 2018, some crazy scientist in China was trying to breed like a chimpanzee with a human and claimed he successfully did it, and then the Chinese government shut the whole operation down and never released the results of what happened. There
Probably
have been
because it was a complete disaster.
Yeah, and there have been pictures of people like of scientists attempting to mix like in vitro sort of thing, like mix like a crossbreed a human with a pig, and they successfully did create a human pig hybrid, and the pictures just look really like this is some awful like playing God shit right here, like this animal that they created that was successfully birthed does not look okay, you know. So it was just like, you know, yeah, even if you could successfully create a whole new species, like some species it's okay, but others not so much. Like you remember how they scientists were able to successfully create a liger, a lion mixed with a tiger.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah,
was like a
those are
perfectly
still real animals.
yeah, those are real animals, and they used to not be, and they created like a perfectly it worked perfectly, and it's like, well, now these exist. I mean,
And
scientists
damn, are they big.
yeah, and scientists influenced this, but like there was no like abnormalities. There was no like there was no real harm, I guess. I don't even know if that's like the best way to put it, but there was no real harm. But certain species like humans and chimpanzees, no, no.
Nah. Well,
Humans and
that's
pigs,
actually
no.
something that I want to talk about with another one of my pros. And so, and to quickly wrap up with the cast, everybody else gives a really good performance. Sam Jackson's fine, even though his performance or his appearance is kind of brief. Um, but yeah, he does give one of the most iconic lines, "Hold on to your butts." Wayne Knight's fine as Dennis Nedry. There's not much to say about him. He's just a greedy, money hungry, disgruntled little asshole, but he gets it good in the end. Um, uh,
He's basically playing Newman again.
Lex and Tim, one of them, Lex being played by Ariana Richards from Tremors. She does a good job too, although she's the less focused on of the kids. Although it seems like she too pretty. Pardon all the interruptions, by the way. I don't know if any of you viewers have noticed, but it seems like my Wi-Fi is um, not cooperating very well today. So I beg your pardon. Hopefully this isn't a total shit show. But anyway, yeah, Ariana Richards is really good in this movie. Um, and that's all we have to say. That's just one pro.
My gosh. We're 53 minutes in. We've only done one pro.
Well, this is probably the first pro that Pierce will have definitely something to say about. So pro number 2 is the amazing soundtrack done none other by John Williams. Just gonna say it. This is my favorite of all John Williams scores. More than Indiana Jones. I think he did Indiana Jones. More than Jaws. More than Star Wars. More than Superman. Jurassic Park, in my opinion, is my favorite of John Williams scores, and I think this is his best work. Every time I hear the Jurassic Park theme, I just always get pumped up and I always get excited. It always makes me want to watch the movie. One of the most iconic soundtracks for any movie of all time. Now, John Williams and Steven Spielberg do mix very well like peanut butter and jelly, but for this movie, Spielberg and Williams were just literally firing on all cylinders and moving just like a perfect oiled machine. John Williams was at the top of his game doing this movie. My favorite piece of music probably is the main theme is pretty good too, but my favorite piece of music is probably the one that plays when um right after John Hammond says welcome to Jurassic Park. That music is just peak John Williams for me. Um to quickly talk about the sound design for this movie too. This movie did win an award for the sound design. And during the T-Rex paddock scene, I really noticed this upon the most recent viewing. There's, to my knowledge at least, zero music that's played during the entire section, specifically when um you first hear the T-Rex footsteps. There's zero music. All you hear is the sound of the world. We'll talk about that a little later when we talk about the T-Rex paddock scene, but um yeah, the sound design in this movie is fantastic. But John Williams' score is fucking fantastic. Love it. Pierce.
Yeah, John Williams, he's a genius. I mean, this guy is like another workaholic. You think about how many music scores he's done. You know, he's done
Hundreds.
hundreds of movies, and he also just doesn't do only movies. You know what I mean? Like he does live performances, he does play, like you know what I mean? Like his entire like resume is just miles long. And it's this is another like example because like where like Spielberg made this movie the same year he was doing Schindler's List, and John Williams also did the score for Schindler's List.
Um, I didn't know
So it
that.
was like I'm like there's a story where I think John Williams was like brought to tears trying to like score Schindler's List, you know, and it's like I wonder how far apart he was conducting scores for these movies, you know, like one one week you're doing Jurassic Park, right, and it's all fun and upbeat, and then like the next week, all right, time to do Schindler's List now, you know. Yeah, it takes some strength and it takes some real like musical engineering and know-how to really like have variation like that, you know. You think about in all of John Williams scores, like they're all very unique, but they all still sound like they came from John Williams, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, just a genius, you know.
What are your thoughts on the music for this movie? Like, what's your favorite track?
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't
I
really
know
pay
that's
attention to
hard.
the soundtracks like that. I guess like the main theme, you know, the main theme, you know, Welcome to Jurassic Park. Right,
Okay,
flying the
fair enough.
helicopter, like, yeah, that's just peak right there. That is peak.
Alrighty, pro number three um, is the humor in this movie. Now, this movie isn't like out and out like Dirty Grandpa or That's My Boy levels of funny. Don't get me wrong, but I do think there is a good kind of tongue in cheek, subtle sense of humor that is put into this movie. Probably done intentionally, since I now know that Spielberg was doing Schindler's List the same year. Um, but yeah, there's some good like snicker and chuckle lines sprinkled all throughout this movie. Not just Jeff Goldblum being the meme machine that he is, although a lot of the humor does come from him too. Now, do you do and eventually plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour? Right? Hello, huh? Hello, yes. Let's see. What are some other funny lines? John, when the Pirates of the Caribbean get out, the pirates don't eat the tourists. Uh, Also, when Alan fake gets electrocuted, and then Lex is, that's not funny.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah, that's funny. And then Alan's just giving the kids this big shit eating grin. Um, what else is there?
Where they got in there, King Kong.
Oh yeah, there's another one. Um, another one from Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, so yeah, this movie's not out and out hilariously funny, but there are some really good snicker moments sprinkled throughout this movie that feel very welcome. They don't clash at all with the rest of the movie. I wouldn't go as far to say that Jurassic Park is like self-aware, but there is a little bit of like that energy of they know what they're doing with this movie, and they're just poking a little bit of fun here and there at it. It's entertaining. Pro number 4 is the pacing of the film. I think is pitch perfect. Now, something that Pierce said, when I was a kid, I would always like be kind of surprised. Now, I was one of those kids like, I just want to see the dinosaurs. I want to see the monster. I want to see Godzilla. I want to see the monsters on screen. I don't want to watch the humans talk. It's just boring. I want to see the good stuff. Now, occasionally I did kind of feel that way towards this movie when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older, and this is another thing that this movie has in common with Jaws. Like Jaws, the first half of the movie is a lot of character development, dialogue heavy scenes, and just a lot of people talking and setting up the film. They save all the good stuff for more of the second half. Now, unlike Jaws, where it's a tale of two halves, the first half is all the humans talking, and then the second half is them being on the boat hunting the sharks. I would say it's more like the first third of Jurassic Park is when they're doing all the build up and all the character development and such. But one thing I think this movie does have over Jaws, the human stuff in Jaws is really good, but here I think the human stuff is better than Jaws. Partially because personally I like the cast more in Jurassic Park. I like the dialogue more in Jurassic Park. I just like the chemistry and the character interactions more in Jurassic Park. But this also has a lot to do with my next pro, the plausible science in this movie. Now, I'm not a scientist by any means. I do know a couple things here and there. I know some stuff about forensic science because I watch a lot of cop shows like Bones and such. And I had
that's that's how you get your forensic information from bones.
well, I'm not saying it's perfect, but over the course of the show, there is some general information that you can pick up on. And I also have a family member who was a doctor or at least a nurse and worked in a hospital for over 40 years. So I do know just a little bit about a little bit of some science and paleontology and such. And I am aware that this is a sci-fi movie. This is pseudoscience. It's movie science. I am aware that a big part of all the science that's in this movie is fictional and it's not super realistic compared to today's technology. But even still, at the time, the way that the scientists go about to creating dinosaurs, they explain it in a way that does feel very plausible and it is done in a believable way. Like, yeah, I believe that this kind of technology could be developed to bring back dinosaurs. Um, it's very well written. It's very convincing. And one thing that it feels very Michael Crichton because Michael Crichton, a lot of his books dealt with science fiction, as there are a lot of cautionary tales and dealt with genetic engineering, hybridization technology, and such. And Michael Crichton would actually seek out scientists and he would ask a lot of questions and do a lot of research on the science that his movie was or his book was showcasing because he wanted it to feel as realistic as possible and be as plausible as possible. The same case goes for this movie, and it's very respectable, very admirable, and very well written and engrossing. And it's because the science is so plausible that I do think the first third or even first half of this movie is so engrossing. All the dialogue is well written, the science is so well done, and the chemistry with the characters with two scientists just talking back and forth, it feels so believable. It's very entertaining and engrossing. So that's why I don't really mind the first half being just scientists talking because it's entertaining. But, just as a movie, I would say that this film is very cinematically paced. Also, like Jaws, the first half is a lot of build up and suspense. More so build up for this movie, but um it does a good job of easing you into the film, getting you engrossed with its characters and its story, and then it's like a roller coaster. It just goes up and up and up and up and up. And then finally, when the good stuff gets here, you're in for one hell of a ride once the dinosaurs show up. It's slow when it needs to be, it's fast when it needs to be, and it's just entertaining from start to finish for me. I don't really have any scenes that I think are boring or that I skip, except for maybe the first part of the tour, like leading up to when we see the Triceratops. Just like just a little bit antsy, but it's not that long. I can sit through it and be just fine. Oh, and it does have another one of Ian Malcolm's most iconic lines. Now that is one big pile of shit. So, all good there. I can sit through it and be fine. Let's see how many. You haven't said a word about any of my pros.
I mean, I agree. I agree with pretty much all of it. So, not much to add, I guess.
One,
Like I
two.
said, it's you're hard pressed to find someone that doesn't like the original Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? Jurassic Park, the Lost World Jurassic Park is like where you can actually have like some dialogue going on where people are like, "Well, I like the movie," and other people will be like, "Actually, this movie sucks." You
Well,
know?
are you one of the haters?
No, no. I mean, I can see there's a huge difference in quality in terms of storytelling,
Well, then maybe I'll have to
but
have you on for Jurassic Park 2.
okay.
But anyway, my next pro, this one's kind of brief. I already mentioned this, but the suspense in this movie is also pretty strong. This is something that Jaws has over Jurassic Park. Not by a whole lot, though, but I think that's mostly because there's just not quite as much suspense in Jurassic Park as there is in Jaws. But when we do have suspense, it is still quite strong. It mainly is kind of more focused in the T-Rex paddock scene as well as the stuff with the velociraptors, specifically the kitchen scene. But yeah, the suspense is very strong. It's very palpable. Uh, for me, it's the strongest with. Damn, that's hard. Because I want to say the T-Rex paddock scene, but the Velociraptors are debatably kind of scarier, so maybe I think it is stronger with the Velociraptors. What do you think?
Hmm. In terms of suspense, I mean, the movie is already hitting you pretty hard with the suspense in like literally the first scene of the movie, where like all the workers are all like waiting for the container with the first Velociraptor. You remember that scene?
Of course, who doesn't?
Yeah. So like, yeah. So the movie already hits you pretty hard. And then after that, like you're seeing uh Sam Neill, Alan Grant, like on a dig site, and then he's talking to the little kid, and he's being very spooky about it. You know, and it's him foreshadowing the stuff with the Velociraptors later. You know what I mean? It's just they're all great scenes, really. You know, it's hard to really pick a standout when they're all standing out. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean specifically, what scene do you think has the strongest suspense? So the opening scene, the T-Rex paddock scene, or the kitchen scene with the Velociraptors?
Oh well.
I know that's hard. I probably actually would say it's with the kitchen scene because that's a more harrowing, scary situation with two kids being in such close proximity with two vicious killers. So it kind of does have you more on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. What about
But
the scene where Ellie Sattler, she's turning the power on in the park and she's stuck inside with the bunker or whatever?
that one never
Because
really got me. I think that is like
that's a
that's a
scene.
harrowing scene in and of
Yeah.
itself because it's intercut with whether or not Tim's going to be able to get off before she turns the fence on.
Mhm.
But to me, it comes off like it's more of a jump scare with when the Velociraptor pops out than it is like a suspenseful scene. Although it is kind of creepy her going into a dark bunker when there's velociraptors running around armed with only just a flashlight. So I
Yeah.
guess it is pretty good there too.
That's where she finds that's where you find out what happens to Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Here, let me give you a hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's more of like a just a horrifying jump scaring scene, more than it is a suspenseful one. But it does still have good suspense. Speaking of which, this will be a quick one. Pro number two, three, four, five, six. 7 is there are some good jump scares in this movie. There's not a whole bunch. Like it's not like a shitty Blumhouse Bye Bye Man or Ring 2017 piece of shit movie. These are the good kinds of jump scares. They're the ones that actually come out of nowhere and scare the shit out of you. Like the first one I can think of is in the T-Rex scene when the I think it's like the goat's leg or something just flops onto the ceiling of the Jeep. Uh then after that there's the clever girl scene, which is a nice bit of following up on foreshadowing when Muldoon is in the middle of the jungle and then he gets ambushed by one raptor. Clever girl. That one always kind of did spook me when I was a kid because I always kept forgetting about it. And
Yeah.
then he goes to take aim and he's about to shoot the velociraptor. Oh shit! Hello. Probably definitely the strongest jump scare of the whole movie is when Ellie turns on back the power on the whole park. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes a third velociraptor, and I think I remember reading somewhere Laura Dern was not expecting that. That was like so her reaction to seeing the Velociraptor animatronic was real. Like her screaming, "God damn, that was real." Um, if it was good, because
Yeah.
she did come off being scared shitless. And I wouldn't really say, real quick, this isn't a super scary movie. Like, it's not like, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen? Like, one that actually got under your skin.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, if it really got under my skin, it was probably because I was a kid. So,
That's what I mean.
like, I don't know. I remember watching like Princess Mononoke. I remember that being like pretty spooky as a kid. I watched the Thing prequel remake, the
Prequel.
2011 Thing movie. I saw that in a at a drive-in theater, and it was like a double feature. So here I am, 9 years old, and I forget what the first movie was, but that movie was the second movie, and I stayed up to watch it. And like that's a pretty gory, nasty movie to watch. And as a 9-year-old kid, that's probably wasn't the safest thing for me to watch. But yeah, that was pretty scary too.
For
The
me, oh, go ahead.
Coraline. I don't know if you ever watched Coraline.
I love Coraline.
I
Come
know a
on
lot
now.
of people love that movie, and a lot of kids like that movie. But that movie scared the shit out of me as a kid. I don't know why. It's a very creepy, very like evil kind of movie. That's a story for another day. I have a lot to say about Coraline, but this
Well,
is
for me, yeah, I've said many movies on my channel that have scared the shit out of me. Return of the Living Dead, the original Day of the Dead. A lot of zombie movies scared me, but America Werewolf in London, um, 2005 Doom. A lot of movies scared me when I was a kid. This was never one of them, but there are still, yeah, some really good jump scares, and there is some really like harrowing, suspenseful moments that can get under your skin. Um, but I would show this to like a 5-year-old and have no problem with them having nightmares.
Yeah.
Although I do know some people who saw this when they were young, and the velociraptors specifically did scare them. Like they were, it was like a similar fear they had with the xenomorphs from Alien. They're just always afraid of the velociraptors showing up and eating them. But anyway, so yeah, there's good jump scares, but they're not like, in my opinion at least, they're not scarring jump scares. They're just really really good. Pro number 8 is the selection of dinosaurs, of course, that we have in this movie. Now, there's not that many, but we do have a nice collection. Now, granted, they are kind of like the most. Well, I mean, this movie did kind of cement the amount of dinosaurs in this movie as being like the most famous and the most well known, especially in pop culture. Of course, we have the T Rex, Triceratops, Velociraptor, the Dilophosaurus, and Brachiosaurus. Um, so we have kind of a small collection of dinosaurs in this movie, but they are, of course, made that much more memorable with my next pro is the fantastic array of special effects showcased in this movie are absolutely, to this day, 31 years later, absolutely fantastic. Some of the best special effects of any big blockbuster movie from any director in the history of cinema, in my opinion. Do you have anything to add for the special effects before I get into it?
Well, it's because most of it's practical. That's for sure. I mean, they used if you no matter this goes for all movies, even bad ones. If you have practical effects, it's always going to look really good. You know what I mean? I can't I can only I can't think of very many movies where the practical effects looked like glaringly fake. You know, maybe like a grindhouse movie from the early 70s would have some unconvincing practical effects. But yeah, this for a big Hollywood movie with practical effects, which is like something you don't see very often, haven't seen almost exclusively in the last 15 years. Yeah, it looks pretty damn good. And even the scenes that are CG, like when the T-Rex kills and eats a Gallimimus dinosaur, yeah, that's CG, but like it's amazing. Like you know, if you have that one CG shot or a small handful of CG shots in a big movie, and you spent a lot of time on just those few shots, yeah, you could make it look pretty darn real, and it does. You know, maybe I mean maybe if you were watching it on like a 4K disc, you know, maybe that 90s early 90s CG effects might not look might stand out just a tad bit, but I mean, I rewatched the movie on Peacock. That's yeah, Peacock, right? That's what Universal owns.
Yeah, it's Universal
So
streaming service.
so yeah, and it looked fine to me. You know, that was an HD stream. So yeah, great effects, great effects.
So, yeah, this movie features a vast array of practical special effects, but it also features not a vast, but it does feature quite a few digital CGI effects. Granted, Terminator 2, which came out 2 years prior, also had CGI effects mixed with practical, and those look great too. But I do think that it's Jurassic Park. Like, I'm a big fan of movies that use both. I'm not one of those people that strictly wants one or the other for a movie's special effects. I think you can make a movie look good if you use both, because both have their strengths and weaknesses. And Jurassic Park is one of the best examples, maybe the best example of a movie that uses both forms of special effects to complete and enhance each other. Wherever the practical effects may fall a little bit short, the CG effects can come in and fill the spaces they can't fill. And same goes for vice versa. But yeah, the CG effects for this movie, I believe they were done. Well, first off, this movie shockingly had only a $63 million budget. By no means small, but you'd think for a movie this big scale with such high caliber effects, you'd think the budget would be much bigger, but shockingly, no. And I do think that's because Spielberg, he can be, a lot of his movies do have big budgets, but Spielberg can be like James Cameron in the fact that he can work well within limitations. Maybe not as good as James Cameron, but he can still do it. At least in my opinion. I still stand by James Cameron is possibly the best director that knows how to work well with limitations. Look at Aliens, for example. Probably his best work working with a limited budget. But yeah, the CG effects for this movie were done by, I believe, was it Industrial Light and Magic?
Mhm.
I think so. Hold on one second. Oh, god damn it.
Spielberg and George Lucas were buddies, so that makes sense.
Oh, my stupid thing is not working properly. Ugh, damn it. Okay. Well, I am pretty sure that it was Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, that did the CG effects for this movie. And granted, they do look 31 years old, but I'm not saying that as a bad thing. The CG effects, especially for the time, are groundbreaking and absolutely spectacular. I'm gonna save my couple nitpicks with the CG for later, so bear with me with that. But I think 99.8% of the time, the CG has aged like fine wine, specifically for the T Rex and, well, the Velociraptors too. But I think the T Rex is the biggest dinosaur that they use the most amount of CG for. So it's nice that the focus was on the T-Rex, so the T-Rex is probably the best CG dinosaur in the whole movie. But yeah, the CG models for the T-Rex, honestly, I actually think it's a reverse Eiji Tsuburaya syndrome moment where I think actually the Rex looks better in the daytime as CGI, in my opinion. Marginally, because at night the Rex CGI model still looks really good, but it looks a little more noticeable as being CGI, I think because the Rex is covered in rain, so it looks a little bit more digital. Um what the fuck? I am not even going to dignify that with a response. Um
What?
damn it. Oh, look at the chat. Oh fuck. Oh, okay, so the CG model for the Brachiosaurus I will say for later. The CG models for the Velociraptors are kind of limitedly used, but they also look really good. They're animated and they move really smoothly and they look really good. Um, all the Gallimimus that we see in this movie, those are all CG and those look really good. I forgive that being looking kind of fuzzy because it's a huge group of CG dinosaurs running past, so it looks a little fuzzy because they're moving so fast. I kind of forgive that they look so fuzzy because they kind of would look fuzzy to you in real life because they're just blitzing past the screen like crazy. Um, but of course, The highlight of the special effects in this movie are the practical animatronics and puppets done by, of course, the legendary Stan Winston, my favorite American special effects technician in all of cinema, more than Tom Savini, more than Rick Baker, although Rick Baker is probably a close second. Um, who else is there? John Carl Beekler, he's a good one too. Um,
Oh, Jim Henson.
Jim Henson, there's another one. Wait, is Frank Oz a effects guy or is he a voice actor?
He's a suit actor. Like Frank Oz is the guy that is in the R2D2 machine, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, of all American special effects artists, even to this day, Stan Winston is number one for me. Terminator, Aliens, Predator, but of all of his work, Jurassic Park is his number one best work. All the animatronics and all the puppets look absolutely outstanding. The full size Triceratops animatronic, I forgive why it doesn't move very much because they explain, yeah, the Triceratops is sick, so she doesn't move very much. But still, I buy that as a real life Triceratops living and breathing. It's very well detailed. Um, it looks like a real Triceratops. I totally buy it. The puppets and animatronics for the Velociraptors are also very well done. Um, their designs are really good. They're very well detailed. They move really good. They sound really good. Um, the Brachiosaurus animatronic also looks really good. Kind of limited, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like from so much of the neck up, like it was just a head. There wasn't a full body Brachiosaurus animatronic. Um, what else is there? Oh, the Dilophosaurus animatronic. That's probably the stiffest animatronic in this movie, but um for what they do with the Dilophosaurus in this movie, which by the way, that's another really good jump scare is when when the Dilophosaurus kills Nedry, but also when the Dilophosaurus first unleashes its frill and starts hissing at Nedry. That's like a good whoa, what the fuck moment. But yeah, what they do with the Dilophosaurus kind of makes up for how stiff the animatronic is for the Dilophosaurus. Um, but of course, the highlight of the whole movie for the animatronics is the T Rex animatronic. It was a full size, like 7-ton, 40-foot long T Rex animatronic. And it looks fucking fantastic. The skin detail is very well done. It's very realistic. I don't believe that T-Rex had feathers, at least not fully grown. So, well, they didn't. Feathers weren't really a thing in dinosaur media at the time, but even then, still, yeah, it moves really well. One thing I noticed recently is when the T-Rex gulps down the goat and it looks over the fence, it blinks its eyes a whole bunch of times. I never noticed that before, but I think that's good in what the hell? Oh, okay. No, he's distracting me. Um, fuck.
Nedry is an anagram for nerdy.
I feel like that's a little bit of a reach, but okay. Um, yeah, I feel like the eyes blinking, that's a good little tick to give Rexy, as I think this is in the first movie, a little bit of her own personality. But yeah, the animatronic moves really smoothly. I totally buy it as a real life T-Rex walking around. And I've said this before, but I like how well they hybridize the CG and practical effects. I've talked about this before during the T-Rex paddock scene. when Lex first turns on the flashlight and it grabs the attention of the T-Rex, the animatronic is bumping its head on the corner of the windshield, and then the T-Rex looks up, and right when the um, T-Rex animatronic is off screen, then the CG model walks past. It's very seamless, and I do think that was intentional to make the practical effects and the digital effects go together like bread and butter. Um, so overall, yeah, the practical effects in this movie are absolutely fantastic. Stan Winston was on the top of its game. You know, again, he's done other good things: Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, Predator, Predator 2. Um, but this is where he was at the top of his game. The first two Jurassic Park movies were when he was at the top of his game. But honestly, I do think my favorite effects for Stan Winston are in this movie. Not just because they're so mind blowing and so immense in scale, but that does have a lot to do with it. Um, anything else to add?
I think you covered it all. What's next?
Well, speaking of which, pro number 10 is the T Rex paddock scene. Without a shadow of a doubt, I don't know. The kitchen scene's pretty iconic too. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the T Rex paddock scene is probably the most iconic scene of all Jurassic Park. And it's also one of the most entertaining, thrilling, suspenseful, and jaw droppingly awesome 10 minutes of any movie I've ever seen. It as a kid, this was always my favorite scene. And even as an adult, this is still my favorite scene. The suspense and buildup are fabulous. There's no music. All you hear is the sound of the rain pattering against the ground and the cars. And then out of nowhere, all you hear is this loud, deep booming sound. And it gets progressively louder and louder. And then all of a sudden you see this giant T-Rex gulp down a goat like it was just a little snack. And you hear the deep throaty growls of the T-Rex and you damn near shit your pants, as I did when I very first saw this movie when I was a kid. Um and it's just so entertaining. It's so thrilling. Yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat the entire time. I never look away. I barely blink. I'm just totally sucked in. And not that I'm saying that the movie goes downhill after that, but I don't think any other scene is as good as the T Rex paddock scene for the rest of the movie. It's just so awesome and so entertaining. To me, it's the equivalent of the second hive scene in Aliens. It's just so damn good.
Right
Anything
on.
to add?
No, I mean it's a really solid scene. You know, perfectly
Pro,
paced, perfectly written. You know, the effects were spot on. It's a good scene.
um, pro number 11 is the fun action scenes. I wouldn't out and out say this is like a full on action movie, although it has action scenes in it. I'd say it's more like an adventure movie. But all the like, there's a couple chase scenes which are really good. The T Rex paddock scene in and of itself, that technically is also an action scene, and it's fucking awesome. When the T Rex is chasing after, oh wait, I just realized before we continue, another word from our sponsor. When the T Rex is chasing after Jeff Goldblum and the others in that Jeep. It's kind of short, but that chase is really entertaining. It's definitely very loud and bombastic, especially with John Williams' music and the loud roars of the T Rex. Um, then there's the Gallimimus chase, which is again kind of brief, but still quite shocking when you see this big giant T Rex just tear ass its way out of a forest just to tear apart one little Gallimimus. Um, then there's, of course, the kitchen scene when the kids are hiding from the velociraptors. That one's also really good. It's very suspenseful, very creepy, gets you on the edge of your seat, and also very loud, bombastic, and harrowing. Um, and then, so this guy down here in the chat is saying the T Rex redemption scene is also really good. Some people have criticized the final scene with the T Rex killing the velociraptors as being kind of Deus Ex Machina ish, which they're not totally wrong, but I don't have a problem with it because it's cool. It's
It's a very cool looking scene. It's just like I don't know how the characters didn't notice the T Rex entering the building. You know what I mean? Because like the T
yeah,
Rex,
we can.
even from far away, every step the T Rex makes, you hear this boom sound, and like the water, you could feel the ground shake, and the water would ripple, and it's like, all right, you know. So here they are between two different velociraptors, and no one notices at all. The T Rex waltz into the building. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean,
you
I could get into if you're in a real life or death situation, you can kind of get tunnel vision, which that's probably what they were kind of going for. But we can talk about that when we get to one of my nitpicks regarding this movie. So I see where you're going with that, but it is still a really cool scene. It's equivalent to the big blow up of the shark at the end of Jaws, and it is cool seeing the T-Rex kill the last velociraptor, and then she just roars to the sky as the banner when dinosaurs ruled the earth flutters down. It's a cool visual. So yeah, I don't really care if it's a Deus Ex Machina. It's still cool. So yeah, action scenes overall are really entertaining. Very well shot. Cinematography is really good. Editing is really good. It's very tight and crisp. Yeah. And then my final pro, taking a page out of Trevor Boy's book, is the legacy of Jurassic Park. I think is very admirable and is very good. Now, not that dinosaurs weren't not popular in movies and books and such before this movie. We had dinosaur movies going all the way back to the 40s. Um, and dinosaur movies were quite common throughout the 50s as really easy monster movies. And then of course, we had the meat eater from the original King Kong. So it's not that dinosaurs weren't popular in pop culture beforehand, but Jurassic Park truly kicked dinosaurs into a new level in a new realm in pop culture. Um, Everywhere you look, whenever there's like a toy line or some kind of advertisement that has a T-Rex on it, it's always modeled after the Jurassic Park T-Rex. And whenever you see like ads for velociraptors or toys of velociraptors, they're always modeled after the velociraptors in this movie. And it was because of Jurassic Park that there was a big influx of interest in dinosaurs throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. Look at the first Super Mario Brothers movie. It was because of Jurassic Park that Shirley brought the Land Before Time series back, because I think before this movie, all we had was the original Land Before Time from 1988. And then after this, starting in the 90s, there was 12 more fucking Land Before Time movies, direct to video. Um, there was Theodore Rex. That was surely another movie made out of the popularity of this film. And it was also because of this movie that the Walking with Dinosaurs special was made, following in this movie's footsteps of hybridizing the use of CG dinosaurs with puppets and animatronics.
Land Before
Um,
Time came out before Jurassic Park.
I know the original did, but the sequels, I'm pretty sure,
Oh,
started after Jurassic Park came out, like 2 to 12, or maybe 2 to 13, started coming out after this movie.
Didn't the Super Mario Brothers movie come out like a month after Jurassic Park?
I don't know. I'm not very familiar with that movie. I mean, it could have just been a weird coincidence
I
that
think that was a coincidence. Plus, the dinosaurs in that movie aren't like, well, maybe Yoshi, I guess, but you know,
anyway, still you can't deny that there was a huge influx of dinosaur media. Oh, the show Dinosaurs also. I don't know if that came out after Jurassic Park, but it was airing around the time that Jurassic Park came out. So you can't deny that it was because of this movie that mainstream attention to dinosaurs was like quadrupled. And so many people were exposed to dinosaurs because of this movie. And so many people became paleontologists and filmmakers and just fans of dinosaurs in general because of this movie, and its influence on pop culture cannot be denied, nor should it be denied. Um, so yeah, this movie's got a great legacy, and I love it for it.
yeah,
I now have four nitpicks, most of which are pretty minor. But don't you have one nitpick yourself?
I do have one nitpick, only one. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go through yours?
No, you can go first.
All right. So I have more of a story nitpick. I ever since I've seen the movie for the first time, and then even today, I really wish that our main characters found out that it was Nedry that caused everything, because you know, yeah, the park was pretty like, yeah, there were moral issues. There was, and that's why he was bringing lawyers and paleontologists and a chaotician. But at the end of the day, it was like this park was really well designed, and it was really, they had all the security stuff, electric fences, guards, they had all kinds of shit to make sure things would not go wrong at all. Right? And the reason why things did go wrong is because Nedry sabotaged the park, right? If Nedry didn't do what he did, the park really could have been just fine, and the paleontologists would have, Sam Neill and Laura Dern would be like, this is actually pretty great what we did, and they could have signed off on it, or endorsed the park. But our characters, they never find out it was Nedry, so no one ever truly confronts Nedry. Nedry gets killed by a dinosaur, so it's like, all right, he dies at the hands of his own like destruction, right? But they never find out it was him. They never bring him up at all, I don't think, in Dominion, because remember, Dodgson's the one that hired him in the first place, and like I don't think they bring him up at all in Dominion, even though Dodgson returns in Jurassic World Dominion. And I kind of wish that, like, you know the characters found out, because a lot of the characters blamed what's Richard Attenborough's character. They blamed him, and at the end of the movie, like, he's the one that like feels like shit, and then in the second movie, he's the one that's like, I'm the one that fucked up, I'm the one that fucked up. And it's like, kind of, yeah, but Nedry did sabotage the whole park, and things probably would have been just fine if he hadn't. That's the only nitpick that I got.
I see what you're saying, and in some ways, I do kind of agree.
Yeah.
You could argue that because they're in such a life or death situation, they don't really have time to really ponder and think about, how the hell did this happen while they're being chased by dinosaurs? And the movie ends right as they're rescued. So I'm sure that they probably did launch some kind of investigation into what happened once everybody was safe and the entire island was evacuated. So that's the only thing I can think of that like mediates that nitpick. But I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, well,
Um,
they don't
it
even
does,
address it in any of the
yeah,
movies.
they don't
So
even like question like, huh? All the security systems and the gates are being deactivated. So who's in charge of all this stuff? who's supposed to be looking after all this stuff? Where is the person that's taking care of all this
Yeah.
stuff?
You know,
He's gone.
no one finds out that like that the what's it called? The dinosaur
Embryos.
embryos were missing. Like they never there's no scene where they're looking around, they're like, "Hey, this is all the embryos are missing," you know? They never dig up the Barbasol can. Even in Jurassic World, where like the kids in the Jurassic World movie find the old remnants of the old park, and they're digging up they dig up the when dinosaurs ruled the earth banner, but they never find the Barbasol can. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
that's
it's like
because I think,
this
if
was like
I'm
a
not
whole
mistaken, there is a Telltale game, Jurassic Park the game, that is set right after the events of this movie. And I think there's like a team that whatever company Dodgson works for that are sent to Isla Nublar to be like a backup plan in case Nedry failed. I never played that or like watched that game, but I am pretty sure that takes place right after this movie. And I also think that there is a new Jurassic Park game that's coming out either this year or early next year that I'm pretty sure is taking place after the events of this movie. So maybe we can get some kind of reference to Nedry and what happens to the Barbasol can with that. But I do
maybe
see what you're
I
talking
don't
about.
know. That is kind of bullshit that like 30 years later you're gonna retroactively answer a question that really should have been answered
Yeah,
a
I
long time ago
agree.
and then do it in the form of a video game instead of
I
like
agree. I do think that it is kind of lazy writing, but it's better than nothing, I suppose.
sure, you know. I don't know. It's debatably video games and comic books and all that like extra materials like it's like it's up to like individual fans to determine like is this canon, should it be canon, and if you ask one person they'll say no, ask another person who's a big Jurassic Park nut will be like, well yeah, of course the video games are canon, you know.
Alrighty. I have four nitpicks. With number one, this is the most minor and the most brief, but I do think that this movie is a little bit tame. There's hardly any blood in this movie. We do have some kills, but the only bit of blood that we really see is when we see the remnants of Mr. Arnold, and also when Tim gets electrocuted. Like I'm guessing maybe his eardrums must have ruptured, but he's bleeding out of his ears a little bit. But other than that, this movie is extremely tame. And the most iconic human kill, Clever Girl, there's zero blood. And you can tell that they were kind of censoring that kill. Like, how convenient. Someone's being attacked by a velociraptor, and there just so happens to be a fern that's covering the guy getting his head bit off.
The guy in chat called you a nihilist. You'd be surprised. He actually refuses to watch movies because of the gore.
That's not true in the slightest, Pierce, as I've already explained.
I remember asking you about watching Terrifier, the Terrifier movies, and you were like, "Nah, too gory."
Well, now I have watched the Terrifier films, so that's
You
been
have?
rendered moot.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
You must not watch a lot of my videos. Anyway, so yeah, now this isn't really a problem, but I see what Spielberg is trying to do. He's trying to do another thing like Jaws. He's leaving the kills up to the viewer's imagination. And I get it, but come on, Spielberg. Jaws was nearly 50 years ago. You don't need to keep jawsing everything. Just like with Transformers, you don't need to keep teasing us. You have fully functional Stan Winston animatronic special effects here on display. Let's see them be put to good use. You don't have a faulty, shitty shark mechanic breaking down on you every other scene. Those problems are gone. You have a bigger budget now. But again, it's not a huge problem. I know I made it seem like it's a big problem, but Yeah, I don't mind that this movie is so tame, but it is just a little bit of a shame.
Nick, when did you review Terrifier?
I didn't review it. I just talked about it in one of my movie collection videos.
Oh, that doesn't count. I
I
thought you
don't
were
really
gonna.
have any plans to review the Terrifier films.
Oh, okay.
First one I don't have much to say about, and the second one's kind of more of the same. Nitpick number 2, there are some continuity errors. One that was just brought to my attention, even though we just explained it, yeah, when the characters are being cornered by the velociraptors, how the hell do they not notice a 5-ton, 40-foot long T Rex just walking willy nilly into a big doorway in the visitor center and then attacks the velociraptors? Like, what? Huh? And especially when they establish with the footsteps, you feel the booming sounds. How the hell do you not notice this big giant animal coming in? Like, what? But then there's another one. This is the one that sticks out to me the most. Is during the velociraptor egg hatching scene, there's that robot arm that is like holding the egg in place as the little velociraptor is hatching. When Dr. Grant is looking at it, you see the robot arm, but then when we switch to John watching the velociraptor hatch, the robot arm is totally gone. And it's a very quick transition, but if you pay attention, yeah, it's totally gone. Um Again, not a huge problem, but there are a few continuity errors all throughout this movie. Well, not all throughout, but in a couple noteworthy scenes. Those two I talk about being the most notable. Nitpick number 3 is there are some dodgy CG effects. I think the weakest CGI dinosaur is the Brachiosaurus, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Specifically, now the far away shots when the Brachiosaurus like rises up on its hind legs and takes a bite from the tree, that looks fine. But when they're really up close, like when you see the legs and the tail fluttering by, and then the camera looks up at the giant Brachiosaurus. Now, it doesn't look terrible by any means, but it just probably is the weakest CG effect in the whole movie. It looks a little cartoony.
I wonder what it would have looked like. Like, would it still have looked the same if you were watching it in the theater in 1993 and you're watching like a straight up projection off the 35 millimeter? I wonder if it would have still looked as dodgy, or if like, because it's like you're watching it straight off of film. When you're watching a disc,
They
like
have to clean
what
it up and digitalize it a little bit, but
yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Uh, yeah, there's less processing going on. The grain structure would still be there if you watched it straight off the film. Like, wonder if it looked better that way or not.
well, I don't know. Even when I watched this movie on VHS, I do think I still thought when I was a kid, yeah, that's probably the weakest digital effect. But another one that kind of stuck out to me too is again with the Brachiosaurus, when Lex gets sneezed on. When you see like the Brachiosaurus like pulling away and looking right at Lex, and then it sneezes on her. That one also looks a little too cartoony. It kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. Like it's supposed to be kind of a darker scene, uh, area, like down on the ground where the Brachiosaurus's body is, but its head is illuminated with the sunlight, and then the whole body is the same color that its head is illuminated as the sunlight, and it kind of that's the best way I can describe it. It kind of does stick out like a little bit of a sore thumb, but it's a very quick scene. Like all you see, Lex says, "Come on up here, girl. Come on," and then you see the Brachiosaurus. Then she sneezes, and then that's it. It's very brief, so it's not a big problem. But yeah, it's a little cartoony. And anything else to add?
Mm.
And my final nitpick is there are some scientific inaccuracies. Not really talking about the T-Rex and talking about the dinosaurs. Not with the T-Rex because this was just the best approximation at the time, at least to my knowledge. The Triceratops looks great. The Gallimimus looked great, although you could debate on whether or not Gallimimus had feathers. Um, I personally I'm in between, like maybe. Like certainly some species of like other species like Ornithomimus might have had feathers, but I'm not sure. Um, what are the others? Oh, Brachiosaurus looks just fine, even though apparently that's actually more closer to another sauropod called Giraffa Titan. But still, Brachiosaurus looks fantastic. But yeah, of course, the two most known scientifically inaccurate dinosaurs in this movie is the Dilophosaurus. For starters, the real Dilophosaurus was 3 times as large as the one that's showcased in this movie. Dilophosaurus was about 20 feet from head to tail, full grown. Whereas in this movie, I think at the most it's maybe like 8 to 10 feet long. Um, in real life, Dilophosaurus did not have a frilled lizard style flap of skin on its neck. And of course, in real life, Dilophosaurus did not spit venom at its prey. Dilophosaurs were ambush predators in real life. But yeah, I mean, well, I have a theory, but I'll get to that in just a minute. But then, of course, yes, the velociraptors in this movie are not real velociraptors. It was thought for a long time that they were based on Utahraptors, the largest living member of the raptor family, but they're actually specifically Deinonychus, which was another species of raptor that was like made to be twice as large for this film, and then just called that Velociraptor. In real life, Velociraptor was about the size of a turkey and had feathers. Yeah, these velociraptors are very inaccurate to how they were in real life. And this wasn't the intent, but surely this did leave a lot of people really confused when they would see dinosaur documentaries and they would say, oh, yeah, hey, this is actually what Velociraptor looked like, and this is what Dilophosaurus looked like. And people who saw Jurassic Park were like, wait, what? Really? Myself kind of included. But I have come to realize and accept that, yeah, velociraptors did not look like how they're showcased in this movie. It also didn't help, well, both did and did not help that a lot of dinosaur documentaries both took inspiration from Jurassic Park, but they also, a lot of them made reference to Jurassic Park saying, hey, look at the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, and then look at how they actually were in real life. Way different. Um, Again, not necessarily a problem. I actually have a new headcanon theory that, oh, and another one too, regarding the T Rex. It has been, um, it has been proven that T Rex specifically did not roar. Most dinosaurs, in fact, in real life, did not roar. It's actually been heavily theorized that specifically like large theropod dinosaurs like T-Rex or Giganotosaurus, they made these really low frequency sounds, kind of like elephants, that were like nothing like the sounds that the T-Rex made in this movie. I know it's a little debatable for Velociraptor. Like they probably made chittering and squawking and cawing noises in real life like birds, which they do in this movie as well. But my headcanon theory for both why the Velociraptors look so different, and why the Dilophosaurus looks different, and why the T Rex roars, it's a result of the genetic engineering. These aren't 100% accurate to real life dinosaurs because of the implementation of different species of animal DNA. Now, granted, they're still compatible to make the DNA, be able to be used and grown and still live, so on and so forth. But the mixing of the various DNAs with these other dinosaur DNA species, it causes like slight mutations. In some cases, it's small, like giving the T Rex the ability to roar. It also might explain why the Spinosaurus looks the way that it does in Jurassic Park 3. But with the Velociraptors, you could argue, and as like a headcanon explanation, the reason why the Velociraptors look so different, it's a result of the genetic tampering mutating them to look very different to how they would actually look. And especially the same goes for the Dilophosaurus. Like you could just say, hey, you know what? With the Dilophosaurus, we just mixed Dilophosaurus DNA with frilled lizard DNA, and now it has a frill. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
Well, yeah, I don't know if how much artistic liberties they took when they were making the movie. I know that our understanding of dinosaurs has changed since the movie came out by a
That
lot.
is true too.
And
Yeah,
it's
at the
so
time,
I'm
our
sure a lot of it
knowledge.
was
Go ahead.
based
Sorry.
on like I'm sure a lot of because I know they wanted to make the dinosaurs accurate for the movie, right? So,
Yep.
so I guess at the time 30 years ago that was the understanding of what dinosaurs were. And it's the same for I guess not every movie, but even back then it was like in the 1930s, 40s, the 60s even, dinosaur movies that tried showing dinosaurs realistically were basing uh, the design of the dinosaurs off of paleo art, which at the time paleo art was designed based off what they think a dinosaur would look like based only on the skeletal structure of the dinosaurs that they had found. And but nowadays, the evolution of dinosaurs on film has plateaued. Like it's really stagnated a lot because you know, as we understand more about how dinosaurs, the less fun they seem. You know, a lot of dinosaurs are smaller, and most dinosaurs don't roar, and a lot of dinosaurs actually have feathers. You know what I mean? So it was just like, well, the less fun dinosaurs seem as we know more about the science behind it. Now most movies just keep copying Jurassic Park. Because I think beyond Jurassic Park, that's when we all started to realize, wait, this is not what dinosaurs really were. And that's why I really liked Peter Jackson's King Kong because he gave a much more realistic answer for why the dinosaurs in his movie did not follow what science said at the time in 2005. It was like, oh well, these aren't real dinosaurs as science uh sees them. Like these are dinosaurs as if dinosaurs never went extinct and just kept on evolving 65 million years later, you know. So I'm like,
And
okay,
that makes sense
yeah,
too.
that's a reasonable answer. But Jurassic Park, as time goes on, it's hard to defend the accuracy of the movie, you know.
And real quick, I would like to add, I don't believe that T Rex had feathers, at least not fully grown. That to me just makes no sense. It'd be like because a lot of tyrannosaurs lived in a lot of hot climates. So if a fully grown 5-ton, 43-foot long T Rex was to walk around with feathers, be a complete oxymoron. Chicks, like baby T Rex and juvenile T Rex, I wouldn't be surprised if they had feathers, but kind of like with some species of whales, whom are born with this thin sheen of hair that they quickly molt as they grow older. As T Rex grew, they would molt their feathers to accommodate their large size so that they could stay as cool as possible.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I think like in Australia and Africa, those are very, very hot climate areas, and there's still like emus and ostriches, which are the
Well,
really
that
very
also
very
those
large birds, but they still have feathers. So
yeah, they're large birds, but they're not 5 tons and 43 feet long. They're as large as their environments will allow them to be while still having feathers. To me, at least, that's what I get out of it. Again, yeah, I'm not a scientist, but that's what makes sense to me.
I don't know. I mean, if you take this, I mean, ostrich is a very large bird that still has feathers. Like I said, millions of years ago, the atmosphere was different. There was more oxygen,
That's another
so
thing too.
you
Yeah,
know. And then, did you ban that guy?
yeah, he's getting on my nerves.
Yeah, all his comments disappeared. But yeah, yeah. So plus back then, the Earth wasn't as crowded either. You know, we got 8 billion people living on here. Back then, you know, you didn't have humans. You didn't have a lot of animals. It was just dinosaurs and other random creatures. You know, so yeah, there was more room for larger animals to grow.
Yep, and in
So
the oceans too.
yeah,
But
okay,
yeah, that's getting a little bit off topic.
okay.
Anything else to add?
No, I mean Jurassic Park it is up there among the best movies ever made. I don't know if it's in my top 10, but it's definitely in my top 100. It's a
Oh,
very, very, very good
that
movie.
narrows it down.
You know, I don't know anyone that just has not seen the movie. Like I said, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that hasn't. The movie made $1 billion, like not even adjusted for inflation. Like the movie made $1 billion in the early '90s. You know, like imagine you translate that to today. Like that's a big deal. You know,
It's probably at least a $2 billion movie, even 30
yeah,
years ago.
exactly.
Jurassic Park to me is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's definitely my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. I do think this is his best film from the ones that I've seen. I can watch this movie anytime, any day, and always enjoy it just the same, if not more so. One of my true all-time favorite movies, which is why I have zero cons regarding Jurassic Park, none whatsoever. So as a result, I will be giving this the highest score that I could possibly give it, and that is a perfect solid gold 10 out of 10 for me. I love Jurassic Park. This is just a very, very special film to myself.
Agreed. Agreed. 10 out of 10.
All righty. So yeah, this is a way better video, way better review. So anything to plug, Pierce?
Subscribe to Cinematic Trash. You know, I'm going to G Fest, so if you know me and you see me, come say hi.
Uh, Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. Look forward to me continuing the Jurassic Park reviews with a review of The Lost World, Jurassic Park, a very hit or miss controversial sequel that I love the living crap out of. Look forward to that. And of course, go out and remember, guys, life uh, finds a way. And I will see you guys in the next video.